Do you struggle with bloating no matter how many things you've tried? Does your bloating impact your sleep, focus, and comfort in your own clothes? Do you feel completely overwhelmed by what you could possibly try to finally get rid of your bloating? If so, then today's episode is for you. In today's episode, I teach you about the 5 hidden bloating causes and solutions you need to end bloating permanently. These are the same things I teach inside my course, The Better Belly Blueprint, to help my students finally get rid of their bloating and constipation. So if you're ready to ditch the bloat and stop feeling confused about your body, it is time to jump into this episode. Hey friend, welcome to the Better Belly Podcast. Do you want freedom from bloating and constipation? Do you find yourself up late at night Googling natural constipation remedies, causes for bloating, or recipes and exercises to help constipation? Are you frustrated with the mind game of trying to figure out what foods are helping or hurting your gut? Hey, I'm Allison, mom, wife, and functional gut health practitioner. At a young age, bloating and constipation were my constants. I didn't know what to do and wished I could just live a normal life focusing on my passions, my job, and my family. I was tired of abdominal pain that woke me up at night and wasting time and money on gut health remedies that just didn't work. Breakthrough moment, the functional medicine and osteopathic approach to gut health. In this podcast, you will find natural remedies for bloating and constipation, practical, doable belly exercises and massages, and debunk the myths about what really is causing your tummy problems. So toss out those laxatives and say goodbye to that embarrassing gas. Your gut health is calling. And just as a reminder, this information is not meant to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your own health practitioner before you make any changes to your health. If you are listening to this episode, you most likely have been dealing with bloating for a while. You've tried bloating remedies that you found on blog posts. You've tried talking to your doctor. You've tried the quick fix, mix of something with apple cider vinegar, or the thing your friend said would work, or the thing on TikTok that's a pill that you mix into water. I don't know what you've tried, but usually these things have not helped. And that is because bloating goes beyond just taking a quick digestive enzyme or a supplement or doing a juice cleanse. Your body is much more complex and much more beautiful than that. And so on today's episode, I want to talk about 5 hidden causes of bloating. They are things that are just not talked about very often in social media, not talked about very often by doctors, but they are very true and very real, and they are impacting you. They are impacting the clients that I've worked with for over 5 years now. And I want you to know about them so that you can be free from them. So let's talk about 5 hidden causes of bloating and the solutions you can do for each of them. Number 1 cause for bloating that I find with clients is pathogens. Pathogens is the fancy term for bad things in your body that are not your healthy bacteria. So they can be a parasite, they can be bad bacteria, it can be candida overgrowth, it can be a virus, whatever it is, it's there and it's causing chaos because your body's going to not function very well with that thing present. Now, some of the most common ones out there, they're going to be things like H. pylori, candida, parasites. I had a parasite. I have lots of clients with parasites, C. diff. These are all things that are not going to show up very often in conventional testing done by doctors at hospitals because while they might be aware of or familiar with these names of these pathogens, they are always looking for higher quantities in the body that is to them, that's what signifies sick than what you actually might have in your body. You have acute high levels of these pathogens that are going to show up, and that will show up on the tests done in conventional medicine. And then you have low chronic levels, which what's going to happen when you have lower levels, what it means is that your immune system is stronger than other people's who maybe have been impacted by this at higher levels, but it's not strong enough to get rid of the pathogen. So when you have these pathogens present, they do all sorts of havoc, which each individual pathogen creates its own unique havoc and has its own unique solution to it. But one of the things that will happen is you will get bloating. You will not move your food along in your gut. You will not detox as well, because bloating is a combination typically of several things. One, backup of lymph. Lymph is a key detox pathway in your body. And if you can't move your lymph along from your gut to the rest of your body where it should be, it's just going to back up and it's going to create like a water pressure. It's not water inherently, it's called lymph, but it will create a pressure because it's essentially a traffic jam. I want you to imagine a traffic jam on streets in your city. If all your streets are traffic jammed, that's what happens with all that fluid, and it creates that visible bubble, or sometimes it's not even visible, but the felt bubble of pressure in your gut. It can also be gas. It can also be food that isn't moving along. And so all these things will create that either visible or felt, or sometimes both, where you can both see it and feel it, that you're bloated, and that's because of the pathogens. Number 2, poor detoxing. This actually gets into the lymphatic thing I was talking about here, but we have multiple detox pathways in our body, and if you are not detoxing well, then those pathways don't work and you get a traffic jam. I've got a great episode on probably one of my favorite detox pathways that gets talked about the least, which is the liver. If you go to episode 118, liver, it's called the number one thing you can do to ease bloating and PMS. Go check that out. I give a lot more sciencey things on the liver than I'm going to get into in today's podcast, but all that to say, your liver can essentially get congested where it's not moving stuff through your body as well. And then that's one of the sources of the traffic jam, right? If you think traffic jam might be caused by just too many cars on the highway, that's typically too many toxins your body's being exposed to, too many food sensitivities, too many heavy metals, whatever it is, too many parasites. That can cause it, but you can also have like a car accident or construction, right? And that's typically what's happening if, say, your liver is congested. This is more of a car accident type problem. It doesn't typically happen all at once like a car accident, but it will build up over years of problems, and it's going to show up in one way as bloating. So another source of bloating that sort of is talked about, but there's a lot of misconceptions around it, is food sensitivities. So the main problem I typically see with food sensitivities when someone's saying, well, I went gluten-free, or I went dairy-free, or I went soy-free, and the bloating sort of improved or didn't improve at all, whatever your experience was, if it didn't completely clear you up, the problem with that is that you only tried food sensitivities and you didn't work on pathogens. You didn't work on detoxing. You didn't work on the next two things I'm going to talk about that are sources of bloating. And so I have another whole podcast episode on this, episode 116, why going gluten-free hasn't healed your gas and bloating. And even if you haven't gone gluten-free specifically, it applies to any food restriction that you might have tried, whether that's the low FODMAP diet or low histamine, whatever you've tried. If it hasn't improved your bloating, then go and listen to that episode and it's going to be relevant. So that's number 3, food sensitivities as a hidden cause of bloating. Number 4, mineral deficiency. So you need minerals for your gut to move things along. So you need minerals for the muscular walls of your gut to contract and then push stuff through. If you are depleted in minerals, the most common ones being sodium and potassium. I have a whole podcast literally from last week on magnesium. If you're like, why didn't you mention magnesium? Magnesium gets way too much press, and you can actually take magnesium and still not move stuff through your gut. And that's because of sodium and potassium. Go check out the previous episode if you want to know more. But sodium and potassium are the most common ones I'm seeing people are deficient in, and also a big reason to be deficient in them, other than just not eating enough, which is definitely happening for many people, is also things like heavy metals, which are a problem. In my last class of 15 students who took the Better Belly Blueprint, my course for getting rid of bloating and constipation, 5 of them had extreme levels of one or more heavy metals. We had uranium present, we had arsenic and mercury, like very relevant, very large amounts for those students. And so that to them was uniquely part of their bloating and constipation, unlike the other 10 students in the class who had maybe smaller or no amounts of heavy metals. So you want to make sure you're addressing mineral deficiencies. You're taking therapeutic levels of minerals, which is usually thousands of milligrams more than what you are intaking if you take, for example, say an electrolyte package of sodium and potassium. Usually has only sometimes in the tens, 10, 20, 50, sometimes just in a couple hundreds of milligrams of these minerals. Typically, for a therapeutic result, you're going to need thousands. So I do recommend knowing what your mineral levels are, but also then knowing and making sure you're actually doing a therapeutic dose for it, which is something I teach in my course, The Better Belly Blueprint. And then lastly, the fifth hidden cause of bloating is going to be visceral restrictions. These are restrictions in your actual tissue where, say, your colon, maybe it wants to rotate and push, but it can't because on the outside of the colon, it's restricted. It's actually like connected to some other structure. Maybe it's your rib cage, maybe it's another organ nearby, maybe it's itself, which can happen. If those visceral restrictions exist, then that organ can't move the way it wants to, even if it's getting the right nerve signals from the vagus nerve, even if you're digesting your food and you're detoxing. If it can't move, that is a big problem. This happened to a client of mine where we had been working together and doing functional medicine strategies to help her constipation. We were working on the detoxing, food sensitivities, pathogens. She had a parasite, mineral deficiency, and she had improved a lot, but she was still just not having bowel movements every day. They weren't always easy. And I said, why don't you come into my office? She had 2 treatments of visceral manipulation with me, and it was night and day improvement in her bowel movements. She was getting them very consistently past that point. She didn't have to take extra magnesium or potassium or sodium to poop. And she was able to come off of all of her food restrictions but one and still be pooping and not bloated on a regular basis. And so that was a huge, huge win for her. And one of the key linchpins for her was getting visceral manipulation and addressing visceral restrictions in her body. So in my course, The Better Belly Blueprint, I actually teach you 3 different self-tests you can do to see what your visceral restrictions are like. And then I also teach you how to find a visceral manipulation therapist near you who's good so that you can have them evaluate you and also treat you on a deeper level. If you are curious about learning more about any of this visceral restriction component of things, I have a whole episode on it. Episode 90, it's called Fascia 101, the hidden force behind bloating and constipation. And I dig into the fascial components to bloating and constipation. So the main problem, maybe you've heard of one of these 5 things, maybe you've heard of multiple of these, but the main problem I see with clients that I'm working with who are still struggling with bloating, that they just cannot get rid of, that they're doing all the things, they're working so hard, and some days it's gone, some days it's there, they don't know why, they're just out of their mind, frustrated. The problem is that they're typically only dealing with one of these things, maybe 2, but they're not dealing with all of them. I want you to think about if you had a car that you couldn't drive, sometimes there's only one problem, right? You can't drive it and you need to change the I don't know a lot about cars, y'all. You need to change the transmission, something like that. That's super expensive, right? But maybe your problem is that you're missing a spark plug, you're missing a wheel, and you're out of gas, like completely out of gas. Okay, if you fix the spark plug, but you're still out of gas and you don't have a wheel, you're not going to be driving the car. You could even fix the spark plug and put gas in your tank. You're still not going to drive until you get that wheel on. And it's the same thing with the body, where you want to get all of the components that are missing back into alignment. And I teach you how to do this, how to identify every cause and address each of them step by step in my online course, The Better Belly Blueprint. In the Better Belly Blueprint, I teach you how to find and address naturally any pathogens you have, how to boost your detoxing ability, how to find and get rid of food sensitivities, address mineral deficiency, and reduce your visceral restrictions. There is literally no other program that I know of that does it this way, and it is why so many of my clients get results, whether they have worked with me in my office or in my program. Additionally, when you join the Better Belly Blueprint, you get 3 free months inside the Better Belly membership, which is your place to get bi-weekly weekly group coaching calls with me, access to our members-only Facebook group, and the ability to order unlimited functional lab tests that come straight to your home, no doctor needed, no hassle, just labs that you get. Take your samples at home and send in prepaid packaging back to the lab. Once you get your results, I then teach you how to analyze your lab results on your own. You can get my feedback in group coaching calls, and you can create your own protocols and your own pathway and process to get rid of everything, all 5 hidden causes of bloating that I've talked about today. After this course, you will have no more guessing about what will help your bloating, no more wondering why your bloating won't go away, no more hearing that your labs look normal. And if you take the Better Belly Blueprint and you do all 4 of our foundational functional labs and they come back normal, I will give you a complete refund of the Better Belly Blueprint. So if you are ready to stop guessing and start getting answers, then join the Better Belly Blueprint today. You can pay in full or pick a 3 or 6 month payment plan option. I seriously want to make this so affordable to you, so accessible, because you do not have to be stuck with bloating. You do not have to be stuck with frustration. You do not have to be stuck waking up in the middle of the night in pain or trying to put on another pair of pants that just won't work. So don't wait any longer to feel good again. Just go to betterbellytherapies.com/blueprint or click the link in the show notes to join today. Again, that's betterbellytherapies.com/blueprint or click the link in the show notes and join today. Hey friend, I hope you loved this episode. If you've been a fan for a while or newly loving this podcast, can you do me a favor? Drop into Apple Podcasts and leave me a review. When you leave a review, you do so much. You help me know you're listening, you can tell me what you're loving so I know what to make more of, and you help others by boosting this podcast so other people like you can find the podcast too. I mean, it's a win-win-win, right? So if you want a way to pay it forward, just go to Apple Podcasts or click the link in my show notes and leave a rating and review. And if you want some more free stuff, just head over to my free Facebook group, betterbellytherapies.com/Facebook, and you can get access to all of my free support for you, including some Facebook group exclusive stuff like my podcast episode vault, where you can search the Better Belly podcast by topic and find exactly what you need to expedite your healing. I cannot wait to see you in there. Catch you guys next week.